Okay, let's take a look at passing information text from one form to another. You can also pass more than that, and there's more than one way of doing this. So let's go ahead and take a look at one way of doing this. So I've got two forms. Here's my form 1, and form 2 just has a label on it with some text inside of it. Okay, let's go to form 1. And with form 1, I've got some coding which will show form 2. And then also it will show information from that text in the label on form 2. Okay, let's take a look at this first off. So show form 2. First thing we did is that we made form 2 from form 2, which is a class. These forms are classes. We made FRM2 and FRM LBL1. Okay, so now that we've had these inside of our class, um, FRM2 and FRM label are now available to any of those methods inside of our class. Okay, let's go to this method, which is for the button 1. When I click on button 1, it will go ahead and create an object of a type form on, and it will then show form 2. So it'll create an object of form 2, and then once I have that, I have a lot of different choices here. Let's take a look at some of them. Change the size, site, starting position of where I want this to display on the screen. A lot of different methods and properties that I can go with this. Okay, so the one that I wanted was just show. Show is a method, so I need to put the paren in there. Okay, so let's go ahead and try this. Debug, start debugging, and it comes up with our first form. And so let's see if it'll show form 2. Click on that, and it shows form 2. Okay, so that works okay. Now, let's go to this coding for the second part. On form 1, what we have is that we can show a label from form 2. We can get this text, this label right here, we can get the text from this label. So if we look at the property for this label down in the text, we can go ahead and grab this property. Okay, and so let's look at the coding for that. What we do is that we simply say, okay, form label, we're going to make a new form 2. Once we do that, we have access to all of those labels and properties and objects that are on form 2. So what we want to do is that we want to go get that text from the label, and it's label 1. Let me check and make sure this is label 1. Okay. So what we want to do is that we want to go get from form 1, we want to go get label 1 dot txt. Okay. Now, it doesn't like that. It says on my label 1 is not accessible due to its protection level. Well, that means on this class, on form 2, I'm on form 1 right now, so let's jump over to form 2. On this particular label, if I go to design mode, it's listed as private. So it's private to form 2. So only form 2, only methods on form 2 can have access to this label. So one, what we could do is we could change it to public, but normally you don't want to do that. You want to leave it as private. If you change it to public, then other classes can have access to this, but then things get a little out of control and other classes may accidentally access this, and you don't want that. So one of the ways that we can do that is to, let's go to coding on Form 2. And what we can do is that we can create a data member, and in this case we called it. So come down here below the constructor on here, and we can say let's create a string, and let's call it show label. Oops. And with this string variable called show label, the only thing we're going to do is that we're going to go get and return whatever is in the text for label 1. And we can make this public so that it's accessible to a different class. It's accessible to Form 1. Okay, so let's go back to Form 1 here. Go to the coding for Form 1. So it didn't like us directly trying to access that label, but on Form 1, so instead of doing that, what we do have access to is this property called show label, which we created. And what does show label do? Well, it returns the value, the text from label 1. Okay. But our object for next Form 2, and what we're going to do is we're going to take label 2. Here's label 2, and in the text for that, instead of having it say label 2, we're going to go get the text from Form 2 and store it in there. Okay, and we're going to do that by taking this object, which is now Form 2, and on there we created a property called, oops, doggone it, a property called show label. Okay, debug, start debugging. So here we have Form 1, we're going to show Form 2, here's Form 2, and now we're going to show the label. In other words, we're going to go get this text from the label on Form 2 and store it in here. So click that, and it does that. It goes and gets that text and displays it. Okay, that's it. What we did is and you can reverse this depending on which form you want to go to and what kind of information you want to get. Do you want to get it from a text box, from a label? You can even get properties from the text box and change those on the other label. A lot of different things you can do. All right, that'll do it.